You just walked out with $2 million. No gun went off, no alarms chased you down the street. You got away clean, except you didn't. Because that money sitting in your bag right now is essentially radioactive. You can't touch it, can't buy a car with it, can't put a down payment on a house. The moment you try, someone in a suit asks one simple question. Where did this come from? And your whole world collapses. This is the problem every serious criminal has had since the beginning of organized crime. And the system they built to solve it is genuinely one of the most sophisticated financial operations on the planet. It's called money laundering. And here's exactly how it works. Let's start with why money gets dirty in the first place. Any cash that came from something illegal, drugs, fraud, bribery, corruption, theft, carries a problem. The government never got taxed on it, never logged it, never traced it. And if they ever connect that cash to you, it's evidence. Money moves through a system that tracks everything. Bank transfers, large purchases, investment accounts. Every move leaves a record. So the entire mission of money laundering is this. Take cash that has crime written all over it and run it through enough steps that by the end, it looks like it came from a completely normal source. That's it. That's the whole operation. 3 stages: placement, layering, and integration. Stage 1 is placement, and it's the most dangerous moment in the whole process. You have physical cash, bags of it, and you need to put it somewhere without triggering every alarm in the banking system. Walk into a bank with $800,000 in small bills, and you're not making a deposit, you're making an arrest. So criminals break it down. There's actually a technique called smurfing, which has nothing to do with cartoons. Smurfing is when you split a massive pile of cash into dozens of smaller deposits, each one kept just under the $10,000 reporting threshold that US banks are required to flag. 9,800 here, 9,500 there. Different banks, different accounts, different days. Some operations literally hire people whose entire job is to drive around making these deposits all day. It's about as glamorous as it sounds. Another classic method is buying into a cash-heavy business. A car wash, a restaurant, a bar. Something where sales volume is hard to verify from the outside. You inflate the numbers, claim you served 400 customers on a Tuesday, mix the dirty cash in with real revenue and deposit it all as legitimate business income. Nobody can prove the pasta specials weren't that popular. Stage 2 is layering, and this is where things get almost impressive. The money is in the system now. The next job is to make sure no investigator can ever trace it back to its origin. You do that by moving it, constantly, aggressively, internationally. Wire it from a bank account in one country to a shell company registered in a second country. That company loans it to another company in a third country. That company invests it in a fourth. The dividends come back to a personal account in the original country. 5 moves in, even the most experienced financial crime investigators start losing the thread, which is the entire point. Shell companies are the engine of this whole process. A shell company is a legal business that doesn't actually do anything. No staff, no product, no physical office, just a name on paper and a bank account. You can set one up for a few $100s in places like the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, or yes, Delaware. The actual owner's name doesn't have to appear anywhere public. So when someone tries to follow the money, they find a company owned by another company, managed by a trust overseen by a lawyer in a country with ironclad banking secrecy laws. The trail just stops. Dead end. Congratulations, you've built a legal maze. Stage 3 is integration. This is the finish line. The money has entered the system, been moved beyond recognition, and now it comes back to you. Except now it's clean. It has a paper trail that looks completely legitimate. And now you can finally spend it. Real estate is probably the most popular method. Buy a luxury apartment in London or Miami through a shell company. Hold it for a year. Sell it. The profit is now the documented result of a property investment. Nobody asks questions. Cities across the world are full of empty luxury towers owned by anonymous companies. Great for criminals. Terrible for anyone actually trying to find an affordable place to live. The art world is another notorious one. A painting sells for $50 million. There is no universal registry, no mandatory disclosure of where the buyer's money came from, and no straightforward way to prove a piece wasn't worth that. Buy expensive art, sell it later, the income is clean, and you had something interesting to look at in the meantime. Here is what makes all of this so unsettling. The United Nations estimates that somewhere between $800 billion and $2 trillion gets laundered every year. That is 2% of the entire global economy. And of all that money, investigators successfully recover about 1%. 1. Criminals in this space are operating with a 99% success rate. If any legitimate business ran numbers like that, it would be the most celebrated company on earth. Instead, it runs quietly in the background, touching banks, real estate markets, art auctions, and shell companies in Delaware, and most of it will never be found.